And we're live. Hi, Jason, Elidor. Once again, how are you feeling today?
Good,
Hi,
Cato.
Keda.
How are you?
I'm also good, thank you. Let's wait for a few minutes for everyone to join, and then we can get started with the topic that is quite timely and in hype right now. And yeah, we will be able to discuss that together with you and answer all the questions that our audience have, etc., etc. You guys have been working together for a while now, right?
We have
For how long exactly?
18
For sure,
months,
it's
2 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
okay.
for sure, it's more than a year and a half.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. You must know each other quite well for now, right?
Yeah. Been a great partnership.
Yeah, good to hear. And it might,
Yes,
must be exciting to, just share the experience that you've been working on the projects in the background to the audience and, just share what you've been doing for this many months now.
absolutely. That's for what we joined here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I see more and more people joining, and I believe we can already start the discussion. I'm gonna once again start with hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have a very practical topic to explore today, which is agentic AI in real workflows and how teams can use autonomous systems to deliver real business value. And I believe this topic is very important and interesting right now, simply because we've been covering this topic throughout our webinars throughout the months that AI started with a huge hype, but it is cooling down right now, right? And we've been discussing this that we are kind of entering in a wave where people are cautious and they are getting more and more scared about AI. So if they were like excited and hyped in the beginning, now they are all started asking questions like, do we actually need AI for this? Is it safe? Which model should we use, etc., etc.? And that's exactly why I think this the topic that we're discussing right now is important, because agents are great and of course very very helpful, but only if they are used in the right way, with the right tools. So that's what we will be discussing with our speakers today, uh, which is Elidor Varosi, Senior AI Engineer at Ralabs, and Jason Wilcox, CTO of Source Advisors. And many of you might remember Elidor from our previous webinars and our articles that we've been working on together. And as for Jason, as I already mentioned, he's the Chief Technology Officer at Source Advisors, a leading specialty tax consultancy that helps businesses maximize R&D tax credits, cost segregation benefits, and other complex tax incentives. In his role, he leads firm-wide technology strategy, spanning software engineering, data and analytics, information security, and IT operations, with a focus on using AI and automation to enhance tax advisory services and clients' expertise. And Jason here brings more than 25 years of technology leadership experience with teams delivering a variety of technology applications and services. So we have two very experienced experts right now talking about the topic with us. And before I give the floor to you guys, I want to encourage our audience to use this hour as much as you can, ask as many questions as possible, because while we were talking about the topic and about the webinars, I had a lot of questions answered by these amazing guys here. So I would advise you to use this time as much as you can and ask questions about AI or their different projects, whatever you guys are interested in. So the floor is yours, Elidor. Jason, please, let's start the discussion.
Thank you, Keda.
Sounds good. So I'll kick it off here, just kind of discussing a little bit of the business reality and what I'm seeing. So with AI, I think across tons of organizations, right, you're seeing this idea of the new easy button. And when people look at AI, they're hoping that they can really reduce a lot of the manual repetition, right, that is happening across organizations. You have individual workers that have built up repetitive tasks that they're doing for different clients, for different services, and those are going to be things like data entry, generating reports, processing documents, all that good stuff. Additionally, right, because we're all human, we all have human foibles, there's days where I might be off. And so maybe I make, an output, or I deliver a report that isn't consistent with my quality, or I have, valleys and peaks as far as what that might look like. And so we have a lot of validation, verification components within just, what those different processes look like here at Source and other organizations. And then, of course, there's the scaling challenges, right? Every company wants to continue to grow. Headcount tends to be the most expensive, the hardest to bring on. If I can speak candidly, for every Elidor that I'm able to bring on and work with, there are a variety of candidates that for whatever reason are not a fit for our organization, our team, our project. And so that process and then really scaling that out can be really quite challenging. So, that's some of the business reality of, hey, there are a lot of areas that have opportunity for efficiency and automation. And AI is viewed, I think, by a lot as, this potential solution, and whether it's an easy button or it's something a little bit more robust and a little bit more practical, I think we're finding. So, as before we drop into some of the meat of the details that Elidor will have, just to kind of reframe on what organizations are looking for. I can speak, as far as Source advisors in our organization, but I work with a variety of other people in similar veins across different organizations around the US and globally, right? And people are developing expectations around speed, around accuracy, around cost savings and scalability that, if you are an organization and you're going to continue to grow and continue to deliver value to your clients, to deliver value to employees who are working for you, and to deliver value to investors, right? Whether it's venture capital, private equity, individual shareholders, whatnot. These are all challenges that have to be met.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, sorry, Elidor, I just wanted to add that I think right now we're all moving from the stage where we thought that we had this magic, robot that would do our work for us. And we are starting to change that understanding and expectation from AI. And we understand that this is not something like a God in a box. So what I wanted to ask to dive a little bit deeper, when companies talk to you about AI, which of these goals usually drives the conversation? Like, is it speed, accuracy, or something else?
Yeah. So for us, it really has to do with accuracy and reliability. Certainly as a company, right, we're looking for ways to have cost savings. We're looking at ways to, scale our organization, our business. But the biggest component that we really fall into when it comes to working with clients is clients are also busy, right? And taxes are something that they have to be done, that there is huge benefit to do. But unless you're a CPA firm or an accounting firm, taxes are a must do that you don't necessarily want to prioritize. And so any way that we can deliver an efficient, streamlined, speedy, and accurate process to clients are really huge drivers when it comes to interacting with our existing client base and then delivering or potentially delivering value to new clients.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, and of course, we mentioned all of this, what we need, what clients are interested in, and we're working on integrating LLM systems to support our use cases. However, with whatever integration you start to work on, you need to understand what can be done and what cannot be done, right? And in here, we have a short list of what can be done, because we know LLMs are good at understanding language messages, are good at understanding and generating code, understanding patterns. You can write stuff and ask about specifics in your provided text, are good at generating content and also reasoning. And together with Jason, we've seen time and time again that even small details that may not be that visible in provided text, LLMs are able to extract there and just to build on top of that.
And actually, Elder, which capability do organizations most often overlook or underuse?
It's a mix of most of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it will also depend on what you're working on, because let's say that I'm working on writing code, of course, I'll get some help from some LLM. I'm working on writing some content. Of course, LLMs can be there, can help me also with references. But you can also use some kind of reasoning and problem solving, like you need to plan based, for example, we have this webinar here. We need to have a plan on how we're going to discuss. An LLM can help you by generating a plan, and you can say that, okay, these points make sense or not, but always you need to try and understand yourself in details what is given there. However, that's not all, because we mentioned there are things that we can do, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, go
Some
ahead.
of the things that we can do, first of all, are the precise numerical predictions. And once Jason told me that whoever had the chance or the bad chance to work on statistical models knows that things don't go as planned, right? And one of the reasons is that numerical predictions are quite hard, because you now don't need to have some reasoning behind generating something, but you also need to have a good understanding of a given pattern. And LLMs are generalized models that are really good at their text use case, but are not specifically tailored into making numerical prediction for a given, let's say, data set of numbers, which doesn't make sense if you just read it as a human, right? In that sense. Also, you need to understand that these AI models don't have real-time data access unless you create a system that gives them that possibility to access real-time information. So this will have a training set and will tell you what they learned before. Like if you ask something recent that happened yesterday from a direct LLM without any internet access, it will tell you some information that is wrong, or tell you that it didn't happen. Like ask it for the new, I don't know, phone released yesterday, maybe doesn't have info, it tells you, no, this is not the latest model, or this doesn't exist. Which of course in an organization can be a problem, right? Because our users need the up-to-date information, and both me and Jason know that they will go and complain if they get that sort of information, especially with this day and age in which people think that everything that you get from an LLM is like the ground truth, right?
Yeah.
And you can also use it for calculating complex calculations or mathematics or this sort of stuff. You can give it equations and it will solve it, right? But you shouldn't give something too complicated that is going to lose track of. And you should also know that it's not there to execute actions if it doesn't have the means to do so. So it's not going to send emails for you or to automate tasks, not by default at least.
And if I could, Cato, real quick, I think one of the areas that you had asked about in regards to people and just, kind of where they focus, but I think it's a focus that is happening a lot, but it relates to what LLMs can't do, is they can't do cognitive offloading. And I think a lot of people are using it for that, right? Where they're doing a strategy session, they're doing a planning, and they get something that looks really, really, really pretty out of the LLM. And they subconsciously offload their cognitive, their task to it. And there is a lot of inherent trust. And I think that's something that, just needs to be kept in context of, is that I don't know that we're appropriately interacting with LLMs as a group when it comes to trust but verify.
Exactly. And I believe if we understand what LLMs actually are and how they work, then it's easier to understand why can't LLMs do the things that Elidor has listed. And what I wanted to ask the both of you is, how do you typically explain the difference between what an LLM actually understands and what it can actually execute? Like, do you teach how LLMs operate, or what is the process there?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think of it in terms of AI enablement. It's something that as an organization, we think about and are working to continue to evolve on here at Source. I think AI enablement is similar to a lot of big buzz technologies that have come out, right? Whether it's business intelligence, machine learning, different coding paradigms. I think what happens is that you end up in a situation where you have 10 to 15% that absolutely hate something, 10 to 15% that absolutely love something and are willing to hop into the deep end, right? And then you have 70 to 80% that tend to be willing if they have a little bit of a guide. And I think one of the unique challenges with AI versus the other tools is, a decade ago, if we built a business intelligence suite or some sort of project, it might take 6 months to a year. And when you come out of it, the technology hasn't radically changed. With AI, that paradigm has changed, right? And so you get something that is rapidly morphing and evolving. And I think we have to be a lot more proactive about AI enablement and driving that with our users, both internal and external, if they're going to get all of the benefits of any sort of AI system or AI tool or technology.
Thank you, Jason. And we just received the related question that usually we will be answering the questions at the end, but I think the question that we received right now is related to the topic, so we can answer that right now. Who gets to take care of liability? Agent implementer, developer, or LLM-based model?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, that is something that I try to insulate Elidor from, although he does a pretty good job in terms of service and whatnot. I am seeing a radical change in contractual liability language when it comes to vendors and service providers that are implementing AI into their technology stacks. And, unfortunately, I'm seeing some of that very much kind of happening under the covers, if you will, where, vendors that you've used for years, they do one of their basic, like, hey, we've updated our terms of service. And when you dig into it, it's radical changes in liability constraints, shifts of data security. And, I think, unfortunately, everyone out there is trying to shift the liability to someone else, right? So no one wants to hold on to that liability because this is a Wild West frontier of how you manage data, of what access you're giving different systems to in terms of your own data, maybe your client data. And a lot of companies are not thinking that through. And I think that's something that is first and foremost on our minds here, that we really try to ensure that we are only using tools and that we have a walled garden that makes sure that we protect our own data and any client data. And so we're very standoffish isn't the right word, but we're very conservative when it comes to new vendors and technology. And I think there are a lot of organizations out there that maybe aren't. And yeah, liability is something that I think in the coming years is going to be very interesting as we start to see court cases and insurance claims and things of that nature.
Exactly.
Yes, and it's not even, something that you can just respond with a single sentence, right?
Exactly.
It's more like a process that you try to understand what's the best way to move forward.
Yeah. And I believe it's kind of an utopia to trust that huge companies like OpenAI, for example, will take 100% liability. And I believe it's the better to take the responsibility on ourselves and educate ourselves and just make sure that we understand what we're dealing with and what we're working with. And once we focus on something that we can control, then I believe after that, the consequences won't be as horrible as some of the cases that we see right now. Okay, I believe we kind of redirected from our main topic, and if we continue talking about AI and like I don't know the things that are happening around AI right now, we will be here until the morning for us and the evening for you, right, Jason?
Sure.
Because you're in a different time zone. So let's move on to the topic. I believe we were on the slides to discuss what makes it agentic, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah. So, and I'd be curious for Elidor to jump in too, but the way that I look at AI is you have the basic tools that individuals are using, right? Your ChatGPT or your purpose-built tool. But really for me, what makes it agentic is solving some of the larger problems that look at multi-step processes, at workflows, and how do we solve that workflow? And I think we're very far away from some super universal prompt, right? That really solves complex problems and just does a whole bunch of things correctly. And, like handing it over to a person and just knowing that it works. You really have to think in concrete, finite steps, and how do you really place those together? And how do you develop these work streams or workflows with these concrete formulaic steps? And once you're able to do that and orchestrate, the flow of data and execution in those concrete steps, to me, that's what starts to make something agentic.
Exactly. And
apologies, misclick this one.
no,
And I wanted to add here that all those things that we mentioned before that LLMs can do, right? A simple solution, it's just to pass everything to the prompt. And Jason said, we don't have models that are good enough to do everything. However, at the same time, we know that models are able to understand the context that we're asking for. So if you provide the model with a big file, let's say, or a system, because let's say we don't pass everything to the model directly, and you tell it that this is a file that needs this sort of prediction, it can be like a traditional ML, or you provide an image that needs some kind of specific detection, the model can be able to route it where you need it. So it can orchestrate the, let's say, specific tool that needs to be used. And that also means that you can get the results that you need and not be worried about, is the LLM going to react well this time, or is it going to hallucinate and just make up stuff?
Exactly. And in the production, which of these traits is the hardest to implement well? Like the ones that you have listed, autonomy, goal orientation, multi-step execution, which ones?
Elidor, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. First of all, neither of these steps is easy, right? You always need to develop the system and test in detail, because what's the matter of fact is that we don't want any unexpected behavior to happen. But I would say that multi-step workflows are quite difficult, because your context starts to get big on the conversation with users. The usage of tools needs to be precise. So for me, that would be one of the hard ones, but also adaptive execution. It's quite a challenge.
You can't pick two. That's cheating.
Yeah.
I would tend to say and agree with your second one of adaptive execution. I think multi-step workflows are complex, that there's a lot of effort that goes into them, but at the end of the day, they're not overly dynamic, right? It's like a really complex math problem, where with the adaptive execution, I think that's where we get into the realm of how humans are just naturally really great problem solvers, is they can ingest a huge amount of context and information and really think about the problem that they're solving, and they can riff with a problem when something that they're trying to do doesn't fit the box that they're used to in. And that's something that I think LLMs and just, AI in general is going to get better at. But that's something where right now I see it as a very difficult problem, because LLMs, once they start going down a path, their nature is to go down that path and continue to go deep. And so it can be hard for them to adjust unless you're really providing that feedback, that prompting to really force them to think about adjusting.
And also trial and error is a treat that humans can do easily, but with LLM it's not that straightforward.
Sure.
But we talked about all these tools, right? However, we need also to understand when and where we can use this in real problems, because otherwise, what's the meaning of all of this? And for this, we also have some case studies based on our own experience at Source. So, yeah.
You want me to go or you want to go?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay.
Before you continue, I just love how in sync you are, and I enjoy work. That's why I enjoyed working on this webinar with you guys, because I can actually see how in sync you guys are while working and on the projects, etc., etc. It's just a pleasure to listen to both of you. Please continue.
I was worried that you would complain that we didn't do enough rehearsals.
No.
Elidor brings an ease, which is nice. So, and we definitely align on a lot of things there. And for me, having someone who is just so deep on the technical and so easy to ask questions of, that works great for me. So I get to cheat there, which is excellent. But yeah, so the first case study that Elidor kind of mentioned here, this automated reports and generation, this really comes to Source has amazing talent here. That's one of the things that brought me to Source, is the depth of knowledge and the depth of talent across our operational teams. We have the benefit of being able to say that, yes, we are a thought leader in the accounting and CPA space when it comes to tax incentives in those areas. At the end of the day, all of our operational people are doing a similar type of process within whatever line of business or field that they're in that they have to ingest a huge amount of data in a variety of forms, and then they're going to be doing transformations on it. So if it's an R&D study, they're doing transformations that incorporate payroll and R&D processes and all these types of things. If it's a cost segregation, they're doing that with properties. But what we found is that at the end of the day, all of our teams are generating very robust, very in-depth reports on these different tax credits and tax incentives that we're delivering. But a lot of that development was rote. The details are different, certainly, but we found that our project engineers were getting bogged down in the rote writing of developing reports when we really wanted them to be directing clients, ingesting that data. And so the solution that myself and Elidor and the team worked on was building an orchestration engine that really helped bring about a way of taking in and automating the ingestion of that data, and then leveraging the project engineer's expertise to look at what a junior analyst might write as a report, perform QA, perform validation, so that our standards are even better than they were when we were just writing it manually, and being able to deliver that to the client base. But I'll throw it over to Elidor to kind of go into some of the details and some of the challenges that he found.
Yes. So first of all, when you talk about writing, think about something that you just do naturally, and it just, let's say, quick and easy. And if you're writing on essay, it's like that, right? But when you have to verify facts and you need to write it in a certain tone, of course, it starts to consume time. And also knowing that our experts need to read documentations, need to communicate multiple times with our clients, it means that it's quite time consuming. But what we know that LLMs can do is that you can pass quite a large context, and this can be able to extract information, right? Of course, you need some guidance in there, which means that you can't use certain words, you need to follow a certain standard of writing, etc. You need to verify if the information provided there is correct or not. But this sort of system can help them reduce a lot of the time that they spend. And in our true fashion with me and Jason, we don't really give, statistics that you can say can be based upon anything, because that won't be great. But I think they're saving quite a substantial amount of time now, because you don't have to write like 1,000 words in a single document for a user, maybe in 2-3 days, but you can do in a day or faster.
Yeah, the biggest benefit of this solution is, Elidor hit it on the head, is that our project engineers and our team really get to focus on what they do best, which is understand the tax problems, the tax solution, and apply that to the project. And they don't have to be bogged down in the minutia of formatting a report, of making sure that they've used the exact right language that a tax authority might be looking at. All of that rote work can be offloaded to the LLM that acts as kind of this junior analyst, and we get to take advantage of that highly specialized knowledge that is in our different team members, and it makes them more efficient. And without going into too many of the details, we found significant, not only performance enhancements to the overall project, right? Cutting out, 10 to 12 hours per project. So literally saving thousands of hours a year as we go through all these projects. But again, you also end up with just, I think, a happier project engineer, a happier team, because humans naturally, I think, don't like to get bogged down in the minutia of things. They really like to use their brains and really expand on the knowledge and be knowledge workers versus rote workers. And I think that's what we're helping people do.
Yes. And they will also not get bored by doing the same task over and over again, but they can focus on the fun stuff. And talking about the same repetitive tasks, we also have teams that are working on marketing, right? Just like every other company. And of course, trying to talk with clients, prospective ones, try to understand their needs, of course, is not an easy task. But even before communicating with them, right, you need to have an understanding what I'm doing, that you are contacting me, and what we can work together on. And this challenge means that sometimes you need to check on the internet. Not all the clients are going to be multi-trillion-dollar companies that you just perform a Google search and you have like 1,000 articles about them. So what this solution that we prepared does is that sales teams can ask the system about a provided company, and the system is smart enough to understand what is the client we're talking about, what they are working on, are they compatible with what we're offering? Because maybe you have a company that can benefit from any of our business lines. If we contact them, it means that, we're just losing time in terms of our own people and in terms of that prospective client for the future. Because if they enter a new industry that they need the tax advisor, they are not going to the people that wasted them time, right? So that's something that this agentic system is able to do, because we mentioned AI agents can't understand like up-to-date stuff, right? They have the understanding for only what they have on the training set. However, if we add these agentic tools, for example, we add the tools that can enable the LLM to search on the internet, can enable the LLM to do predictions, etc. That means that you have a very complete package that can give these business users what they just need for their job.
Yeah.
Sure. And we just received a question related to the case study that you were discussing, gentlemen, and I'm just going to ask it so we don't jump back and forth with the different topics. So the question is, queries data sources step. What kind of sources are we talking about? Querying a database or extracting from unstructured sources like PDFs, which would likely be embedded into a vector DB?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, and I think this goes back to our agentic approach. And one of the ways that I really like how Elidor thinks about AI as a work stream, in that if you are on, if you're nascent in the AI world, you typically don't think, I think, multi-steps ahead, right? So you're thinking about, okay, I have this PDF and maybe I upload it to ChatGPT and I have it do some analysis or whatnot. But when you think about the way that we've structured our workflow and how we have years of history of great information, in addition to we have external right? Sources like the internet, we have third-party data providers, all those types of things. We're able to build ingestion mechanisms into all those. And with the system really being an orchestration layer on top of these very pointed and specific LLMs and AI agents, we're really able to orchestrate across a multiple of different data sources and bring all that together. And that really plays into this automated opportunity analysis where you think about 20 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, where if you are a efficient and high impact salesperson, you have a team that is helping you do marketing. You have probably a team that is helping you understand your client footprint, the dossier of all your clients, so that when you have those conversations and you're building those relationships with clientele, you can really speak to the actual need of the client versus some, disaggregated need that you're trying to apply. And what this does is it allows those salespeople to move more rapidly across that, where they can really understand the pain points that clients are running into, that they can have very cogent and specific conversations about those clients' needs and really get targeted and focused, right? So at the end of the day, we're saving our clients time by, hey, if you don't buy property, we're not going to have a cost segregation discussion with you, right? But if we can identify that up front, we don't have to go through the acrobatics of elucidating that from the client. We can have very pointed conversations. But again, it goes back to, we're smart about leveraging the data sources that we would normally provide to these teams in disaggregated forms, and we're able to bring that together. And that's one of the great things, again, like I said, how Elidor thinks about this is that when you apply his approach to orchestration on top of the AI agents, you get the best of both worlds.
And the data sources, sometimes can be very straightforward in a tabular format, but most of the times we also need to understand what is what and how we can really extract that, especially for a company like Source that has databases dating decades ago being in production, right? The data is vast, a lot of information there, but you need to understand how to properly use that without, let's say, using data that is not helpful or useful in any means.
Sure, exactly. And before we move on to the next topic, I just wanted to inform our audience that at the end we're going to have a small surprise announcement that I'm very excited to announce. Yeah, but that will be in the end. Not yet. Now we can
this
move
is
on.
this is a news even for us, guys.
The teaser.
Yeah, the Easter egg.
We didn't expect this. All right. And also, we mentioned our use cases, our experience, but we also have experience on when you can't use LLMs, right? And first of all, let's say you need models like regression models or time series. My quick take would be just don't. I mean, you can try. There are people trying similar stuff, but I would say it's not going to perform well, at least not with the current technology. But instead of that, try some hybrid approach, right? Even in Source, we have projects that have strictly tabular data, and these projects are not going to be implemented using an LLM. Now, these projects can be part of an LLM-based system, right? Because the LLM being able to use agentic frameworks means that you can give it the data, as I mentioned before, you explain it your use case, and it can say, okay, this goes to model X that predicts this sort of data. This goes to model Y that expects this other sort of format that we got here. So it's not that straightforward, of course, but it's the way how you usually proceed when you want precision before being the one that uses the latest and greatest, but the results can vary crazily.
Yeah, and if I could just real quick, I would just add that, when you think about LLM, right, you're talking about a large language model. When you hear something like machine learning, they're still, as it's noted here, they're just models, right? They're models to do different things, and that's all the LLM is. It's not the replacement easy button. It is a new, very powerful model, but still a model at the end of the day to help you do things, do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, what I wanted to just add from my observation is that from what I'm seeing is usually model is never the problem. You know, it's the workflow around it, like how you use the model, like what type of actions are followed afterwards. So I believe that's also very important to understand that like the better version of the model, if you're waiting for the next update or upgrade, for example, to improve everything that's the issues that you have with the product, that's not going to be the case, because what creates this foundation and what creates the success in the end is the understanding and the workflows around that model.
Exactly that. And it's also like organizing work between humans, right? For
Exactly.
example, I'm working on tech. If you make me work on plumbing, I'm not going to be efficient. It's the same thing for these tools.
All right. Well, I guess I can't have Elidor come over and do any plumbing, so I guess it's back up.
Exactly. But maybe I can lay some bricks.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and I think, Cato, that flows right into this idea of, we now have these large language models. They're very powerful. At the end of the day, they're still a model, though. What are the workflows that you're putting around them? And we talk a lot about orchestration. So I think this idea of the symphony of AI, is very apt, right? Where you think about it's forcing people to think about how they do their daily work and their daily operations in a very concrete, discrete manner, right? Where it's almost like digitizing thought, where a human is going to work very analog. But if you're going to have success with LLMs, if you're going to have success with orchestration of agentic AI, you need to think more discreetly. You need to work through, okay, what is the plan? And that plan is going to dictate what are the tools and techniques that you're going to use, right? It's, you think about something in development like a session token versus a JWT token. It's not that either one is right or wrong, but they have different use cases. And that's going to be true for all of your AI tools and those pieces. And then, of course, that interpretation, the formatting, making sure that you're ingesting data, that the LLM understands the data, that it understands the format that it's coming in, that that it is able to use the data sources, the prompting, whatever is coming in as an input, and that understanding is there. And then ultimately that the process, the agent, the tool is able to validate the work that's coming out. We talked about kind of that adaptive validation, those pieces, and then your eventual output, which I think 2 years ago, right, was the basic, I'm going to prompt something and I'm going to get an output now. But with the orchestration and the agentic approach, your outputs are going to be the same outputs that a human would deliver. It could be emails, notifications. It could be complex analysis. It could be walls of data, right? Where then you have to pass it on to a different system, to a client, to another end user, whatever that might look like. But it really, you have to bring all those different layers in together, and they have to be performing appropriately. Or just like if you go to the symphony, right, and a violin is out of tune, everybody's going to hear it, right? And it's not that it totally ruins the performance, but you can definitely tell when everyone is in sync.
Sure. And how do you ensure that agent stays reliable, when there are different multiple tools involved?
Yeah, the amount of tools that are coming out there are fast and furious, and that's not going to stop. I think people, with AI, they can iterate very quickly. You have things like vibe coding. I recommend that you find yourself an Elidor, but not my Elidor, and you have someone that you're empowered to think about and really challenge what tools, what solutions are out there. How is it going to interact with the organization and the workflows, and then really build those partnerships? Because at the end of the day, the speed of the tool development, of what is available, is so fast that not only do you need great partners that feel like they're enabled to really think about AI, but ultimately, as things get faster, it's going to fall to your individual users and the organization. Every individual in the organization has to be empowered within the appropriate kind of walled garden or sandbox, right, for security and some of those things.
Sure.
And how we make agents reliable, Keto, is also that we don't go in there and think that we can make super smart, super large agents, right? But instead we focus on breaking down the problem into steps or into smaller problems, right? If you're given a prompt, you have, first of all, a model that is smart to understand what you're asking for. And then you have a model that is smart enough to understand how to solve your problem, but not an agent that can solve 20 problems in one prompt. And that's maybe the key to success, that we can say that agents need to be focused on a use case, but not really focused on everything. Because if you do everything, you do nothing well.
Sure. So quality over quantity, or quality
Exactly.
over the size of the problem that agent focuses on.
Yes.
Makes total sense.
So I think, ultimately this is going to lead into, and any conversation around technology is going to lead into, okay, how's this going to change or transform productivity, right? So that, as a technology team at a high functioning organization, how do we improve and really make a positive contribution to the team members and the teams that are delivering value to our clients? And, I think you can look in certain areas. Again, it goes back to the challenges that we're trying to solve, right? As far as, can we move faster, right? Can we automate? Can we perform tasks quicker? Can they be more efficient? Can we remove the rote? You look at things like continuous operations and scalability. 5 years ago, Source was a US-based company that operated in the US. We are now operating in multiple countries. We're a global entity. We have people all across the globe. We're able to provide continuous operations, and things like AI is going to help us do that, right? So that we don't have to go crazy on scale, but that we're able to solve some of those challenges and provide solutions that, if someone hops on at 1 a.m. in the morning is doing something, maybe, we've got some solutions to help them. And then, of course, cost reductions. You think about where we are generating, our studies for different service lines and things of that nature. We've had a 100x reduction, right? So I know cost reduction by 60% is great, right? And that is granular in terms of maybe a specific product. But when you think about what we're able to reduce and improve the economics on, when you scale that across an entire organization and entire year timelines, I mean, the savings is, it's absolutely amazing. And then, of course, I think we bring some of the intangibles, like people not having to focus on rote work that is typically the soul crushing part of maybe one's job, where, hey, we're providing back some of that opportunity to be a knowledge worker. And then, of course, scalability across the organization. Like any organization, we want to grow. We want to be able to provide our great value and service to additional clients. And AI is going to let us scale faster and really meet the needs of our business partners and clients.
Yeah. And of course, as we mentioned, that AI is letting us meet the needs of business. We also need to say that, of course, you also need a roadmap when you start thinking about an agentic system now, right? And first of all, you need to understand what you need to focus on, because you cannot start a project without a certain scope. It will just not be efficient, and it will not bring a good product in the end. You also need to have a proof of concept. You need to show people that this thing works. You need to validate ideas. With our team, with Jason and our other members, what we do is that we try different approaches, try different solutions, and we decide to go with what works best, right? It's never like you do it once and you're sure that you will get it right. You always need to try and see what's the best for the given use case, right? What works for one thing maybe doesn't work for another. Then you need to think about integrating the tools that are needed for this use case. You need to go to test, to validate, iterate, and I said first we experiment and do POCs, but what after we deploy the stuff? It's not that you push something and the users use it and they'll say it's perfect, right? Maybe it's 90% perfect, but that 10% makes the difference, which means that we're going to work on there and maintain it. So let's say AI systems are just like normal software systems in a way. Less predictable, but still need the maintenance, still need improvements, and still need the updates from time to time because things are moving fast, just as we said. And it's never a game that stops at a moment and never goes forward. And of course, after that, you need to think about scaling and expanding your capabilities.
Yeah. And if I could just add on to the scaling and expanding, that's something that I think about quite a bit is the production aspect of things. I think a lot of organizations out there are probably very familiar with, they have some person that built some program or did something and it worked really well, and they kind of shoehorned it into a production team, and that organization grew and benefited, but they never thought about how do we make sure that process or that system is actually productionalized. And so you end up with shadow projects, shadow IT, and those pieces. AI, if unchecked, has the potential to be a nightmare when it comes to shadow IT. But from a production standpoint, if you're really thinking about how do I productionalize some of these systems, it can take a little bit longer, and it makes AI evolution development, a little bit slower. But that final step of productionalizing something and making it so that it is rock solid, that it is stable, that the business can depend on it, is worth its weight in gold.
Sure. We've received one more question about the use cases. I'm not hearing a use case that creates a custom model. It's more agentic workflows that use a public LLM, OpenAI Gemini LLC, for the brain. Am I interpreting this correctly?
Yeah, I think in a sense that's interpreted correctly, and I would give context to that question of this. At the end of the day, Source Advisors is a professional services company in tax incentives and tax credits. That is what we do. We're not an LLM company. And we're not a technology company, right? So it's the same reason that I'm not spinning up a bunch of servers and building out a data center and those things. We utilize the skills and tools and technology for us that makes sense, that deliver value to our business and to our client. And where we could say, if we put in investment to generate our own LLM that did something, right? Let's say a tax LLM that was all based on our data. There could be value to that, but at the end of the day, you really have to think about where you're going to be spending your resources. And for us, I would put it this way. We utilize things like Microsoft Azure and the Microsoft technology stack because we're able to rely on things like their liability clauses, their contractual agreements with service providers, and it gives us an 800-pound gorilla backing us when it comes to things like security, reliability, stability. And so I think that there are companies out there that are in a place where they could potentially build their own LLM, do actual model development from the ground up that could have a lot of benefit. For most companies, there are better people out there doing that, and we have the opportunity to utilize those tools and technology that are being developed and attack real world problems that we can execute on now and move quickly.
Yes, and it is a wrap up for everything, right? About choosing on where you need to invest and what's the most cost efficient, and also makes sense from the business, but I also wanted to add the technical side that implementing, something or training a custom LLM, of course, you can base on existing solutions that are open source.
Mm-hmm.
This will not be like closed source LLM level, at least not yet, maybe in the future. But the problem is that the industry is moving always, right? Which means that the models that are good now are not going to be great after 3 months, which means that this process that you took a lot of budget and time to work on is going to be obsolete and you need to work again and again. And on top of that, you also need to think about infrastructure, about scaling, and you also are responsible to have a system that needs to be reliable. And all of these things require a lot of dedicated hours in there, and they're not going to give us a superior result compared to using what is already the industry standard.
Yeah, great call out.
Okay. Gentlemen, before we wrap up this session and move on to answering the questions, and I announce my surprise announcement, I have one more final question from my side, which is, what is one misconception about AI agents you would like the audience to forget today, like immediately, right now?
Elidor, you want to go first, or you want me to go?
Yeah, I can go first, and my take would be, don't expect too much when you start using a new tool, right? Don't expect it to be this perfect silver bullet that is going to do whatever you want to do. We've seen even big providers pushing tools that can use your computer, can automate everything. That's not the way I think the system should be developed now for an efficient, let's say, enterprise application. However, I would say that expect that things that are dedicated to a certain use case that you have, these are the tools that are really going to help your general workflow and really assist you in the day-to-day work or day-to-day tasks. Now LLMs are more than just work tools, right?
For sure.
I probably along the same vein, but I've started thinking a little bit when it comes to AI, a bit in baseball terms of, you have singles, doubles, triples, home runs, and grand slams, and AI can help across all those. And agentic AI, I think, can help across all those as well. Not everything has to be a grand slam. So, when you think about projects or a workflow or an efficiency that you might have a gain on, if you can cut 15 minutes out of somebody's day that they're doing something that they don't like and is rote, it's only 15 minutes and it's one person. But if it's a quick, AI solution or this or that, there can be still a lot of value in that, right? Like, at the end of the day, a game is not won by a bunch of home runs and grand slams. You can win a game with a lot of singles too. And, if you're applying your resources wisely, I think agentic AI is a great approach to bringing AI into an organization and having it bring almost immediate value.
Perfect. I think both of the answers were just, I don't know, nothing to add to them. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. And we're also trying to give our message, right? That
sure.
It's about intelligent orchestration at the end. It's not just about having smart models.
Of course. Now, before we move on to answering the questions, right now is the time for my surprise announcement. So for our audience, we and Jason, and once again, thank you, Jason, for your dedication to this and for finding the time. We decided to give out one 30-minute session with Jason Wilcox, where you will be able to have a consultation with him for 30 minutes, sit down, ask the questions, receive the answers. And for that, you only need to send the agenda to our email address, which is business. I'm sorry, just give me a second. I will write the email address in the comment section, which is business@ralabs.org. So everyone can see it. And just send us the agenda. We with Jason will review all of the agendas received and choose one lucky listener who will get 30 minutes with Jason and will be able to receive the questions to answers to all of their questions. And now we have one final question left, which is, I am interested in the tools you're using for these agentic workflows. This would cover my first two questions. I believe this is something that that will take like a few minutes to answer to.
Yeah, if we go into details, for sure, it will take a long time. However, the approach that we have for most of our projects is that the tools that are existing, right, the things that are open source, we try to incorporate because it's the right approach to many different problems, because it means that you have a library that is going to be maintained, etc. For our agentic framework, like right now, we're focusing on LangGraph. I know that you also have offerings from cloud providers, etc. But LangGraph is the full ecosystem that we're looking for and offers what we need. And on the other hand, we also have custom written tools that are integrating with our corporate specific needs. So it's a mix of both having open source capabilities there and also integrating with our things that are, of course, closed source, proprietary, but needs to be there.
Yeah. And the only thing I'd add to that is, we don't have a lot of tools floating around amongst our organization, with the sensitivity of the data that we work with and the clients and things of that nature. We're very conservative when it comes to bringing on new tools. We have a very formulaic process for evaluation doing that. But yeah, Elidor is right. When we find a tool that works really well, I think we've had a lot of success taking a few tools, putting them together in different ways, and then ultimately applying some business process on top of it for success.
Exactly. And of course, with the focus of offering the quality that we, of course, need, and also having a reliable system. And takeaway would, of course, also be that technology is really important, but also business focus is crucial for any system to succeed.
For sure. Thank you, gentlemen. Once again, for you guys to receive 30-minute session with consultation session with Jason, the only thing you need to do is to send out the agenda to our email address, which is right here with the QR code on your screens. And also in the comment sections, I wrote the email address if that's easier for you. And we will sit down together with Jason, choose one lucky listener, and you will get the consultation information received in your email addresses. So if there's no questions left, once again, gentlemen, thank you so much for this very interesting discussion. It was one of the webinars that I enjoyed working on the most. It was truly insightful, and I hope that our audience enjoyed it just as much as we did while working on it and then presenting all of this to you.
Awesome. Kato, thank you. Elidor, appreciate it as always. Now get back to work.
Thank you, Tim.
I won't be taking your precious time anymore. Get back to work.
Thank you, Tim, and I want to thank also our viewers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.